That's an interesting metaphor to use. I think you could describe pull and release in the sort of ways of pinball. That's not a bad way. So yes, pinball minigames, mini golf minigames have used the pull and release system, and that is actually where we drew that specific movement mechanic. But the rest of the sort of collision-centric gameplay, the central mechanics of the game, so riding rails, bouncing in enemies, moving puzzle pieces around the field, that's all sort of coming from our favorite bits of pinball. If you guys remember things like pressure plates, we'll also be trying to bring those in. Some thoughts like that. Absolutely.
For art assets, I don't see like any content creators for that right now on your team. What's your guys' plan for if you don't get enough artists to accomplish your artistic goals?
A very fair question. So our team right now only has the 2D artists, that's true. But we've been pretty aggressive in recruiting. If you guys saw the paper proposal, we were at 3 people. And not even these wonderful 3 people. So in the meantime, we've gone from 3 to, 14?
Yes.
In the course of 2 weeks. We're aiming to continue this sort of rapid expansion to bring in the 3D artists we need. We're emailing the previous 3D artists who worked on Bloom, as the 3D cel-shaded look is what they actually pumped out. And we'll be reaching out to various groups. CG Hub collapsed, which is tragic, because we were reaching out there as well. But we'll adjust. I think Polycount and a few other sites posting for more 3D artists. If we fail to get the 3D artists we need, I suppose we could speak to the animation school about adjusting to 2D, although right now 3D is where we're aiming to be, and I think where we can be. Thanks.
Yeah. So, who's this for?
Okay.
Who's this for?
Yeah, I mean, pinball RPG. I know what an RPG fan is. I mean, and that's sort of a commitment of life, hours and hours and hours, and I'm old enough to have spent my early gaming years at a pinball machine. Not necessarily for hours and hours and hours, because 3 balls for 25 cents is pretty much, 3 balls and you're out. So how do you take these 2 things to make them appealing to one or the other? Because those audiences don't seem to overlap.
That's an excellent point. So the point you're making about RPGs being sort of a lifetime thing, and pinball being sort of very standard to most of our lives, that's actually, I'm glad you're pointing those things out. We are aiming for people sort of like us, not necessarily in the being 21, half black, half white male named James, more in the sense of starting out with, playing some pinball games. I think most of us play some pinball games, but having a real fondness for RPGs. The core audience is RPG fans, but I haven't actually had as much time to play D&D since coming to college. I think the sort of hours and hours of coming back to the same characters, rolling dice, telling new stories, becomes infinitely harder when you have finals next week. So, for those of us who are interested in RPGs but are now in sort of spaces where we have real lives impeding our ability to play, we're trying to get you a sort of faster pace, briefer gameplay experience.
I was trying to get you to articulate where the fun was.
Oh, fair enough.
Okay, because my expectation is what's fun when I'm in RPG mode is definitely different than when I'm in puzzle pinball mode.
That's a very fair point. So I think that's actually an adaptation problem RPGs struggle with in general. MMOs are nothing like D&D, even if they are pulling from the same sort of genre. We aren't going to be able to revolutionize RPGs for the world. If we were the first people to figure out how to actually get a tabletop RPG into your tablet, I would be much, much too wealthy to be standing here. But we are aiming to, in order to sort of do as best we can, we're aiming to bring people who like to play RPGs, which are limited relative to real tabletop experiences, into a sort of faster-paced transition. Absolutely.
So just kind of following on Joe's question,
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out that I think that a deeper part of the pleasure of pinball machines is that they're very juicy. You're familiar with Jesper Juhl's concept of juicy in casual gaming?
Absolutely.
So I think that is that sort of everything you touch in a pinball game gives you a little bit of juice. And every once in a while you get like the ding, 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 right? And there is a sort of counter pleasure in RPGs in spending money. So I actually do think that there's something to be found here between the juicy pinball mechanic and the cool spending money mechanic of RPGs that actually has some merit. I feel like, just to be completely frank, that the theme of kind of a typical RPG Tolkien-y sort of thing is a letdown because the beauty of most pinball machines actually is they're really cool, interesting, wacky themes. So to me, it's a little disappointing that your theming is so typically RPG. Just a thought.
That's definitely an interesting thought, and we will bring it up with our concept artists and see if we can talk about exploring some other directions. But we're actually pulling from pinball machines. If you guys know the Black Knight pinball machine as a specific example, pinball machines have actually pulled from the RPG genres before and successfully. Although the points you're making about juiciness and feedback are critical to the team. Our sound designers right now, so we have Eric Walker and also our composer Eric Pratt, are working with to sort of bring in those juicy ding 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 sounds that we all are so familiar with. So when you collide with an enemy, we can get some of that sort of metal colliding with metal, but maybe exaggerated a little bit extra, right? Maybe some particle effects, all that good stuff. So I think we definitely are aiming to be as juicy as possible. But I think being knightly or, wizardly doesn't actually draw away from that. I'm optimistic we can make that work, although I'd be happy to talk with you some more about sort of finding that balance.
Take a tone on it.
May I add on to that?
How about metal, like,
Cool. Continue on.
like metal RPGness. Do you know what I mean? Like, take a tone, make it twist, make it modern, make it like.
Ooh, actually, yeah, we actually have a very, so our Eric Pratt actually has already pumped out a 50s themed version of this RPG sort of space, because the RPG space was actually biggest in the 50s to 70s. So we're aiming to draw from that sort of historical reference, a little bit of the post-World War II. Maybe our bosses might have those like Nazi spike horns, So yeah, we'll play around with that. I think we can definitely make this colorful and unique.
We're also thinking of like adding stuff like maybe an Arabian theme where you're within a desert setting, sort of going through Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, for example.
Which is a classic pinball.
Yeah. So sort of building off that and the erratic nature of specific landscapes and stuff, that would definitely be a fun thing to explore.
We didn't mention the theming as much, just to sort of not draw too much attention into scope and not to bring in too many fears. But we definitely are playing with the idea of exploring different sorts of themes for levels and spaces. That'll depend on the art team's ability to produce work. So we'll be rounding up the art team to pull that off. Thanks.
All right. We gotta move. Sorry, Scott. We gotta move on.